Okay, so things seem to have died down back on Earth a little bit, and I'm out of Mountain Dew here on the ship. So I'm charging up my engines, getting ready to make the jump back, which is going to take a few minutes, and I figured I might as well elaborate a little bit more on my feelings regarding Rose. I've made it perfectly clear that I don't think she's a very good person. All of the evidence points to her having major character flaws. But despite that, I'm actually going to use this video to defend her. Because for all of the lies that she seemingly told and all of the deplorable things that she seemingly did, Rose is most definitely still a hero. She still most definitely made a positive impact on the universe in which she lives. That's something that simply can't be denied. There's not going to be much of a lead-in to the points that I'm going to make in this video, as I am treating this as more of a part 2 to my theory from last Tuesday, so I will put a link up in the little link corner spot to take you back to that video if you haven't seen it or you just want a refresher. Just keep in mind that if this video seems a little rushed compared to some of my more recent stuff, that's why. Also, before I get started, apologies for my weird voice. Most of you guys probably know at this point that I've been getting over a cold. Well, now it looks like I'm catching another one, which is weird and seems kind of impossible because I'm literally in space right now. If there's one place where I wouldn't expect to pick up a virus, it would be here, but hey, what do I know, I guess. That said, there are 3 key aspects of Rose's history that I want to focus on in this video. That being her relationship with the other crystal gems, what we know for sure she accomplished during the war, and the legacy that she left behind. It's important to note that even though I think she was in part using the other crystal gems for her own benefit, she did obviously still care about them a great deal. I am still of the opinion, a rather educated opinion if I do say so myself, that Rose lacked a certain degree of empathy, and that between this and the fact that so many gems were willing to follow her, she developed something of a superiority complex, causing her later behaviors to resemble those of the diamonds more than those of other quartzes. And that because of this and because of her lack of empathy, she was never really able to connect with her crystal gems in any kind of significant way. And obviously she treated some of them badly in some ways. Pearl, for example, had feelings for Rose, feelings which should have been obvious to anyone who was around them for more than 5 minutes. And yet Rose either didn't notice Pearl's feelings for her, or she didn't care about them. And if it's the latter, it means that she didn't even care enough to let Pearl down gently, choosing instead to keep her on the hook, so to speak. And that is just wrong. It's wrong and it's cruel. But Rose still cared about her in her own way. She still cared about all of the crystal gems in her own way. Keep in mind that lacking empathy does not mean that a person is incapable of being caring or even feeling compassion or love for a person or thing. It just means that they lack a degree of the ability to put themselves in the place of someone else, something which can get in the way of forming real, lasting, meaningful relationships with people. And if Rose was already a naturally manipulative person, lacking empathy would have made her more likely to manipulate people for her own ends. That's all I'm talking about here. That's what I mean when I say that she lacked empathy, therefore the rest of this stuff. I am not saying that she was lying about caring about the Earth. I'm not saying she was lying about caring about the other crystal gems. And I'm certainly not saying that lacking empathy inherently made Rose, or in fact makes anyone, a bad person. We know from the testimony of both crystal gems and homeworld gems that one of the reasons that Rose and her crystal gems were able to fight for so long on even footing with homeworld is because Rose discovered that she has the power to heal other gems. And we know from Steven's use of that power that the assertions of the other crystal gems as to how that power is triggered is true. That in order to use that power on someone, you have to feel real concern for them. You have to care about them. So even if Rose wasn't able to connect with her crystal gems as people on a personal level, even if she did care about them more the way that someone would care for their pet, to use a very crude analogy, she did care about them. As the war was coming to an end and the Diamonds used the corruption attack, as the fandom has been calling it, she did take the time to pull Garnet and Pearl behind her shield with her, and at least attempt to protect them. An attempt which thankfully succeeded, or else we wouldn't have a show. Not to mention all of the corrupted gems, literal monsters who Rose was unable to heal, who she still insisted remained bubbled rather than shattered because she still cared about their well-being. And even once bismuth proved to be a threat to Rose, a threat which is seemingly severe enough that Rose didn't even unbubble her after the war was over, Rose still kept bismuth's bubble in a place of reverence with other special belongings inside the pocket dimension behind Lynes' mane. Granted, she placed it alongside other objects, suggesting that she cared about bismuth akin to how someone might care about an object, but she still cared about her. There's no denying that. And even if Rose's personal creed doesn't mention anything about gems leaving free, even if her mission statement as a crystal gem is just to protect Earth and the life on it, she seems to have agreed with the others that protecting life on Earth means protecting the lives of free gems who choose to live there. Because while she did recruit Amethyst to her cause, she never once forced Amethyst to conform to the role that Homeworld would have forced her to conform to. She never once belittled Amethyst for being defective or treated her badly, and instead praised her and made her feel like she was loved and accepted, made her feel like she was good enough. And looking at the events of the war, the events that we know happened, regardless of what else they were, Pink Diamond was a tyrant who was bent on ending all life native to Earth through her actions, who was bent on committing genocide, and Rose was the hero who stood up to her and stopped her from doing that. She created the Crystal Gems and brought together all of the Crystal Gem characters that we know now, either directly or indirectly, improving the lives of those people by doing so. When she learned through her time spent with Greg that she didn't seem capable of treating others as equals, that wounded her, it upset her. She wanted to change that. And even though I don't think she was capable of doing so, that's not her fault. If, as I have hypothesized, Rose was not capable of feeling empathy, then that was a flaw of her biology, or whatever the gem equivalent would be. It wasn't by her choice, and there was nothing that she could have done to change that, even though we know that she wanted to. It's painfully obvious from the dialogue between her and Greg and We Need to Talk that she desperately wanted to create a real connection between herself and someone else. Which brings us to Rose's legacy. What is it? Is it just the Crystal Gems? Is it just their allies? No. It's something else, too. I've said this before in previous videos, so this may seem like I'm just beating a dead horse at this point. But Rose's greatest legacy is Steven, and I think that's entirely intentional. I still think that the desperate desire she felt to create real bonds with the people around her, despite the fact that she couldn't, is part of what inspired her to become Steven, to become human. Because to humans, things like empathy come so easily. We literally could not have evolved to the forms that we have today without it. I think that Rose saw that she was never going to make a positive impact in the world beyond what she had already managed to, because she lacked the qualities to do so. And so she took the chance that if she became a human, that human could do what she couldn't. Steven, for all of his flaws, has made a genuinely positive impact on the vast majority of the people who he has met. He's formed real connections with them. He cares about them at least as much as he cares about himself. He's an amazing person. And more than anything, I think that's what Rose hoped that he would be. That he would care about people as strongly as she did. But that, because he was human, or maybe even just because he wasn't her, he'd care about them in a much more real way. So regardless of how badly Rose may have treated her friends and allies, regardless of whether or not she used them, regardless of whether or not she committed atrocities during the Gem War, regardless of whether or not she could be classified as a terrible person, I believe that she wanted to be better, and she was simply unable to be. I think that she planned ahead to leave behind a legacy in the form of a new person who could be all of those things for her. And I think she succeeded. And honestly, if that's the culmination of Rose's existence, I think she did a pretty good job, all things considered. Because Homeworld is coming back, and her methods of opposing them aren't going to work this time. I know Garnet and Steven have hypothesized that there might be a whole bunch more off-colors who might want to fight with them in the future, but if that's the way this conflict goes, all we're going to end up seeing in the long run is a repeat of the last war. Something different has to happen this time, and should another conflict arise between the forces of Homeworld and a group of misfit gems seeking freedom on a distant planet, the only real variable will be Steven himself. Steven, with his unique methods and his literal superhuman empathy, is the key to preventing another war from happening, and finally establishing a lasting peace between these two very different groups. And it is only possible for him to do those things because Rose, I believe, was able to see the flaws in herself and make the sacrifice necessary for him to even exist. So as much as I don't like Rose, and as wrong as I think she was in many ways, I will never accept that she was anything other than a hero. But as per usual, guys, I'd like to know, what do you think of this theory? /discussion /whatever. Let's keep the discussion going in the comment section down below or over on my Discord. link in the description. Either way though, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.